Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us live or watching this recording at your convenience. A warm welcome to all students, faculty members, and alumni from BESU, IIST Shipur. I hope your Saturday has been wonderful so far. I'm Kaushik Das, an alumnus from MCA class of 99, now based out of San Francisco Bay Area. I'm excited to be your host for today's session, organized by the Technical Consulting Special Interest Group under IIST's Shipur Networking Program. It's a privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker, Mr. Harshavardhan Kar, Managing Partner at Accenture Digital. Harsh, a civil engineering graduate from Vienna in Nagpur, class of 1995, later earned his MBA from University of Chicago, class of 2006. His exceptional career includes leadership roles such as Vice President of Data at Coca-Cola, Sears, Dell Marketing, McKinsey & Company, Siemens, IS, and Tata Motors. Today, we are honored to hear from him as a non-alumnus expert, bring a fresh perspective to the world of technical consulting. On a personal note, I had the privilege of being mentored by Harsh during my early days at Siemens in Munich in 2001. His support helped me navigate a new environment, a new company, and emerging technologies, something I'm profoundly grateful for. Tonight, Harsh will share his expertise on technical consulting, data, and AI, and we are pleased to have him with us. Before we dive in, I'll encourage you to share any questions that you have in the Zoom chat. After his presentation, I will ask a series of questions based on your submissions, followed by live questions. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over the stage to Harsh. Harsh, thank you. The stage is yours.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. I am thrilled to be sharing a bit of my experience and even happier that I am the opportunity to do this right from the valley. Right, I was here yesterday and telling Kaushik that hey, we could have been in the same room doing this together. But really excited about the next set of conversations. I am a managing director at Accenture. I lead our agentics practice in Americas. The views on this call are my own and do not reflect the view of Accenture.
Thank you. So, Harsh, actually, I want to actually let you speak about the technology consulting, the emerging technologies, and what actually are the key areas of growth, and for the journey um, of the new graduates or juniors who are coming into the industry. Um, if you have anything to share, if you can actually share with us.
Absolutely. So this is an extremely exciting time to be starting in the industry. There are a few reasons why I wish I were in your shoes as a new graduate starting my career at this point. First, I think I'll tell you the parts of the job when I started my career that I did not enjoy. I started early on and in Tata Motors and very soon spent a year in the CEO's office working on the JRDQV, which is a quality standard that the Tata Groups was implementing. It needed tons of documentation, looking at different pieces of process layouts, looking at what is working, what needed to be changed, and then facing this ISO quality audit once a year from the auditor. That is a painful part of documenting, creating things, which is essentially knowledge which exists everywhere. Today,
Right.
fast forward, you've got tools like Copilot from Microsoft. You point them to SharePoint, ask it to generate the set of standard operating procedure, and you get an 80% draft, which is right in your inbox. That shift of just doing probably quite difficult manual work to a place where we are being assisted by agents and technology to take the boarding, the non-thinking part of the work and automating and instrumenting it, frees up new analysts to work on actually more creative aspects of problem solving, system design, critical thinking. It's an amazing time to be entering the workforce where the typical analyst jobs, which were essentially grunt work, have been taken away and now are being done by machines. So, what
Right.
should you be doing? I would say at this point, you have to be willing to learn. Next decade is going to be of very high volatility, new technologies emerging, shocks would be there, but there'll be some forces which remain true. They will be evergreen. And they were true when Kaushik and I were starting our careers. They're going to be true over the next 2 decades. It's going to be showing up to work every day with grit, with hunger, with the desire to contribute, working harder than anybody else, and having a positive attitude that things will work out, and having that positivity which outshines anyone else. We don't know what the future is going to be, but for sure it is great to be hanging around with positive people who are trying to make a difference to the world.
Thank you, Harsh. I would actually a bit deeper, and ask you a couple of questions regarding AI-powered consulting. How did the field of consulting evolve with the rise of AI and machine learning? And what kind of unique opportunities, if you will, or challenges, that the consultants are facing or will continue to face as this particular uh, industry evolve? What do we see actually?
It's a great question in consulting, and I'll break down consulting into a few sub parts, which is first is going to be the strategy consulting, second is going to be technology consulting, third is going to be the consulting that's needed for labor and change management of people as technology emerges, and fourth would be the way these programs need to be implemented with the transformational lens, right? So there are four different buckets which we will use for defining consulting. From a strategy consulting, where we are in the market, right, about 90% of the organizations are still experimenting with AI and AI capabilities. 10% of the organizations, I would say, are there which have adopted AI as a way of life and are using AI and taking AI first approach. But the other 90% are still, I would say, in POC land. There are pockets of
Mhm.
excellence where a great idea has been implemented, but these POCs have not scaled beyond someone's desktop and 2 weekends of work.
Gotcha.
The strategy consulting is essentially around helping allocate capital, which is your dollars across the enterprise, which is needed for the highest value activity that's going to change the share price or add outsized return to the shareholders. That involves looking at the entire value chain, understanding the nature of the work, understanding the hotspots which are there, and then figuring out which of those hotspots can be augmented and assisted with AI, or so that the customers of the enterprise essentially have a better experience at the point of interaction, which is then about, hey, how do you kind of enable growth and have the lowest cost possible to uh, serve the customer. The second part of consulting is around the technology consulting. Now, the first part is identifying the where the pockets of value are. The second part is then around how do you enable that value, right? Not everybody is privileged to be in the Bay Area, having a digital first, technology first mindset with thousands of GPU in their backyard, right? I mean, they are many of them still have their own data centers, their own server farms. Some of them have gone on the journey to cloud, but they're using cloud more as a application running infrastructure as bare bone, and some of them are using it just for storing data, right?
Yeah, that's
But
what it's
but
become.
the
Yeah.
journey from storing data to getting the insights that uh, drive an action outcome needs a different technical infrastructure. So the technology map would be very different than what enterprises have. On top of that, then technology consulting helps define what are the different data and AI products which are needed so that the value which has been identified in the strategy consulting phase can actually be addressed with different data products, and taking a product-led view How do you execute to that in the right sequence in conjunction with the existing ways of working that the enterprise
Existing.
has? Now, each of them, if I get to the third part, it has got essentially people and people impact, right? People need to be thinking about things differently. There are new skills which are needed. People are saying now prompt engineering is the new way to write software. So you would have an emergence of prompt engineers, system thinkers, which is a very different labor workforce than which was there earlier. Now,
Right.
all of that is fantastic till you have to go through change, right? It sounds very good on paper, but it is extremely difficult. There is no one size fits all. You have to meet people where they are and help them see the possibilities which are there. The reason it's so exciting for new graduates to come in because you haven't seen the old world.
Absolutely.
You started off in an era where I think Facebook and WhatsApp was like native, right? I mean, that time I don't even remember now from college. So you would have been born in an era where Facebook was just emerging, and you were born in a mobile first world. So for you, this is like is native. This is the world you were born in. This is the world you're starting in. But there have been people who have been working in the workforce for 10, 20, 30 years, for sometimes 40 years. How do you make it so easy for that workforce so that AI is actually behind the curtain, right? They don't even have to deal with the complexity of what is AI, but it is so simple, like your Android phone or like the iPhone, where you do not have to read the user manual, right? You pick it up and start working. You may only use 15, 20% of the features, but it's a start, right? That leads to the third part. And the fourth part, I think, is you can have all of this, but none of it works with a great strategy, with a great tech infrastructure, with the right change management, if you do not execute to the program in the right manner. There are many programs, and because AI is new every Monday, they start and they're constantly chasing the shiny toy every week, trying to move versus getting some things to conclusion. So if I think about the training that you all have gotten, just taking final exams every 6 months, there is a logical start and a logical end to the subject that you are studying. It is really important, and many enterprises do not have that view on execution rigor where when they start on a topic, taking it to the conclusion and finishing it out. So execution plus the fourth consulting, where I would say there's a lot of pure mental discipline which is needed and some of the training that you all have gotten in school and we got in school of starting a subject and taking it to the conclusion with the finals is really important. Sometimes you don't clear the finals, so you take the paper again, and that happens in enterprises as well. When you've implemented something, it doesn't work, you change the timeline and do it again. So work-wise, it's very similar to what the training you have gone through at school.
Thank you, Harsh. It's excellent information, and I think what we hear from you is basically, how we translate our learnings from school days into the industry as we are there. I have a follow-up question on that one, if you don't mind. And this is related to the skills that you actually mentioned. We heard about the technical skills that a person might actually be bringing in, and we want to actually know if you have anything extra to add, but also like non-technical soft skills or any other ancillary skills which you recommend students or the young professionals to have or to build, if you will, which will help them in their journey over the next decade or beyond.
So decade is a very long time, but from a technical skills perspective, I can kind of tell over the next 2 or 3 years what technical skills are needed, and they'll continue to evolve. So a technical bent of mind is actually probably more important than the skills. What do I mean by technical bent of mind? It is about thinking about a problem that is given that can be solved by technology versus just putting more people on it. Let me give an
Mhm.
example. Right now, the tariffs have been implemented or they are in the process of being implemented, and this causing a disruption in many enterprises, right? You've got to go study all the different contracts. You've got to understand where your what the trade situation is. You've got to understand your supply chain. There are probably thousands of documents, and this knowledge exists in many of the enterprises. The non-technology solution to this would be adding another 1,000 people to go through the documents, distill the information, create an Excel table, and then to be act on. Then they have the ability to act on it, right? The technology solution to this would be, can you use Copilot or ChatGPT, which all of you probably use in your private life, hopefully not for doing your school homework, but going through all of that to say, okay, and that's an important skill, right? I say that in jest, but would you use the same technique to go through thousands of pages of document to be able to distill and to find out what the critical parts are? As you enter the workforce, this technology first view of using the tools that are using which reduce the workload and do things more efficiently is going to be really important. It is frowned upon at school, but leveraging things which have been done outside is actually encouraged in corporations. Don't go infringe any private or things which are confidential, right? By putting your company's document in an open instance of ChatGPT, use your company's instance of ChatGPT as you join the workforce. But think about a more efficient way to do it with AI versus the old way of doing it. The second application of this would be if you are joining in a programming area, the traditional way of programming, and this is where I think Kaushik mentored me a lot because I was a terrible programmer. Traditional way of programming would be to write the code ground up. The new ways of programming, where a large part of the code is actually written by the software, um, adopt it, use it to drive more work. It is, if I think about the level of digitization which is there in the world, we are only probably about 8 to 10% digitized. There is still 90% of effort that is not digitized, right? So the more you can digitize, it's not that hey, work will be eliminated, but you'll be able to do and digitize so many more experiences for enterprises, for the government to make all of our lives easier. That ultimately is going to go reduce the friction in our day-to-day lives and help us better. I'll give an example. Even today, filling out taxes, given it's a tax day, is a laborious process. Imagine there was a process where you could have just taken all of this and written so much, written enough software that it just asks you for key decisions versus the 3 or 4 hours and an incorrect tax filing return that is there today. So the number of places where digitization needs to be done is going to continue to increase, and your ability to write software using AI is going to be pretty key. Now, to give you two non-technical skills which I think you should have. First is in the first 3 years, showing up to work every day, being at work from whatever the work hours are, if it is like 8 in the morning to 5 in the evening, showing up at 7:45, not 8:15, not 8:30, and leaving as much as is needed to get the work done, going back home and putting in the hours that is needed. The temptation to have an easy life early on is going to be very high. And getting that purpose and focus and working, showing up and working hard to deliver the project outcomes is going to be a really important non-technical skill that I would encourage everyone to have. And that comes when you have a sense of purpose. When you are working on something that you believe is going to change the outcome, change the world. In any work that you're given, I would ask you to sit back and reflect. uh, and connect it to something bigger that the work is going to lead to. An example which I was given early on in my career is if you ask somebody who's building a home, right? If you ask the bricklayer, hey, what are you doing? The bricklayer would often say, I'm kind of putting this brick here, I'm putting some cement and mortar and setting it in place. But think about it slightly differently. We all are bricklayers in our own work every day. But I would think about this as not as bricklaying, but we're building a home where a family would come, live, live the life, create experiences and memories that are going to be phenomenal, and create a loving memory that's going to leave a legacy. That's what we are building. So, getting that sense of purpose in our work early on is going to be important for you to show up early at work and put your best foot forward. Whatever you do, be exceptional at that work that you do each day, every day, because this will create a reputation for yourself. It'll give you learning opportunities. It'll give you growth opportunities that are going to help you early on um, get wider experiences. The second, I would say, is focus on friendships and relationships. They are much more important. As I reflect back on my 3 decades of work, than any technical skill set or any promotion that somebody gets in front of you. I mean, it's just not worth kind of having differences in opinion with people because it's a very small place. Oftentimes, we're competing on different parameters. And early on, the friendships that you develop are going to be your extended family for a period of time. Now, Kaushik is here. He and I met almost 2.5 decades ago. Kaushik became part of our family. We stayed in touch. And look, I'll tell you this that my daughter is here, and we all feel much better, my wife and I, because Kaushik is like 2 miles from my daughter. I mean, nothing was planned.
Yeah,
Things don't happen. You never think about it, but having friendships and relationships is going to help you in your life just be more at peace and do more with the time that you have with fewer concerns than you would imagine.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Harsh. Actually, I appreciate you having so much faith, and of course, our friendship extends to 2.5 decades. It just tells that, a relationship that you build early on in your career stays there forever. Um, you touched on a couple of key points out there. Mundane tasks actually demotivates versus, if you have a purpose, you basically get motivated, right? So I really think that's actually one of the key drivers that we need to have our mind set to basically drive and basically, get through the day. Um, Now, and actually, I much appreciate that you actually covered one of the other questions that I had about the journey day in life of a consultant. So thanks for that one as well. I would actually like to discuss a bit on your own journey. When you graduated from engineering college, and then what motivated you, if you will, to go to business school and you know kind of do a change in your career, or if not, then what additional skills actually that actually delivered, if you will.
It's a great question. I was thinking about this question over the last 24, 48 hours, and I lay out the journey that I kind of went through. Um, I grew up in a family of government uh, employees, right? My father was in ordnance factory. He had done reasonably well. The day he joined very early on, and I remember even as a 4 5 year old child, I my father was kind of at a place where he knew he would become a member of the board and retire as a member of the board. Coming from that environment, there was a desire in my household and my father's view that I should also pursue government service. And I was a rebel, and there was nothing which I would do to work. It's a great service. I mean, I got a lot of respect for people who are working in the government. It wasn't just right for me when I was growing up. Um, so I studied civil engineering because I couldn't get anything better, and I think that was also something which my father wanted, and I studied that, but I didn't quite want to be civil engineer. It gave me a lot of training in terms of thinking about building things, thinking about what are some of the fundamental principles which are there, which enable construction and safety. But that wasn't a career path that I wanted to have. So I interviewed there was no tomorrow on campus, and was fortunate enough to land a job at Tata Motors. I joined their marketing department, and I was told I was the first civil engineer that the sales and marketing organization hired. Based on that experience, the first 2 years of my life were pretty foundational in terms of just learning about principles of growth that was there in the Tata families, right? It was about the community, it was about the impact which Jamshedji Tata and the entire Tata family prioritized over personal profits. It was also about authenticity, and it was also about the right principles of honesty that were were something that appealed very much to me, to have the right environment to work with excellence but with integrity. As I went through the journey, I evaluated, what I should be doing, and purely at that time, financial motivation of my inability to afford rent in the city of Mumbai prompted me to explore career options which were beyond the work that I was doing. I remember I was making about 12,000, 13,000 Indian rupees, and the rent at the places were something like 7 or 8,000. So I had little to nothing left to be able to just have a sustained life. And I met some people who had graduated from IIMs that time and had accommodation provided by the company, and there was a cook there. I was like, that sounds pretty nice, and that was my kind of initial spark that led me to pursue a potential MBA. Um, I then was tapped to be a part of our SAP program at Tata Motors, and it was kind of my first foray into technology, and I enjoyed it very much. That led to a spark in my interest on operations research, which prompted me ultimately to take a job at Siemens, pursue supply chain planning, supply chain implementation across Siemens Group of companies. Kaushik and I worked at Infineon together. We had the opportunity to do something similar for the network division of Siemens. And that led to then a view of, uh, hey, what could technology and software do at scale? Working in Munich, it was phenomenal to understand what a global company with operations everywhere in the world, with a conglomerate of businesses, could go and look at. And working there at Infineon, I met somebody from McKinsey who was helping develop a product roadmap and strategy at Infineon. In conversations with this leader, I realized that the path to working and doing that kind of work was to go to a business school, and I was intrigued by University of Chicago because number of Nobel laureates they had. There was no other criteria. I hadn't come to campus to learn, but I was thrilled with the number of Nobel laureates that University of Chicago had. And I think their marketing positioning was pretty good, right? If you want to be taught by Nobel laureates, you should come to University of Chicago. And that was a defining moment for me because it helped me understand the world, the choices companies make in a very different manner than I did earlier. And the experiential learning at University of Chicago, where there was a focus on foundation, but then a view of how the markets would evolve and how information is actually applicable became a way, it gave me a construct to think about the world in a different manner.
Thank you. Thank you, Harsh. I think you're very candid about your journey, and I think that actually kind of comes across most of us, if you will. We are defined by the constraints that we live in, and we basically are inspired by the moments which we basically take along, proceed, progress, and kind of like take a path which might actually be a divergent path from what we actually have been through. I have actually one other question regarding this one. Um, so you mentioned that that the journey that you actually had from school uh, from the engineering school when you actually joined Tata Motors. Um, it was actually a set of skills that actually you look at, right? Versus what you actually look at from business school coming uh, into the uh, just a second. My question is if what are the typical skills that a hiring manager would be looking for, if you will, in a candidate? This is basically like, I I know that these guys actually are coming from this particular school, from this particular background, but what differentiates and what would be the skill that I prefer to actually have in my organization? So
So it's a great question. And thus far, I spoke about enduring skills which are needed to be successful at a job, right? I think your question is, if I understand it right, is what is needed in the resume and what is needed in the interview session to be successful. So the two-part question, right? I think your resume should reflect in my view, a lot of practical experience, right? We are living in a dynamic world. Many students are exceptional at, I would say, getting the coursework done and succeeding in the coursework, but more projects that you can work on reflect that you have taken the effort to deploy those projects. It doesn't have to be 50 projects, but three, four, five projects, which brings together the different skills that you have learned, and you have created products and you have created uh, applications of whatever field you're studying, which others would find useful. It doesn't matter if you've had commercial success and you've got customers who are using the product, but that's one thing which I think differentiates teams and candidates that have gone through that experience. The second thing on on resume is some kind of a normalizing metric. So in the olden days, there was Kaggle, where if you're pursuing data science, your Kaggle rank was a view to normalize the strength of your thinking, the strength of your algorithms across a wide range of uh, probably background and skills people would have had. So a high Kaggle rank would tell that hey, you actually can think about a problem And if you have across multiple years, then it shows that you're not only learning, but you have a way
Right.
to deploy the learning to be successful. I'm sure there are similar rankings which are there for coding, like this hacker rank, which Meta uses for which then kind of differentiate your resume. The part around interview is interesting because there are typically three parts of an interview, right? One is the technical part of the interview,
Right.
where you're asked a technical question and your ability to think on your feet is going to be quite important. And I have seen many candidates work through about 100 hours of training to be able to be exceptional in their ability to think and articulate and problem solve for a technical question that comes in. And I think the difference between people who try to wing it, know that they're good at it, and are trying to do it in real time versus people who prepare is quite apparent in the interview process. The second part of it then comes to behavioral interviews where there are questions on how you have handled conflict, how you have handled team situations. And while you can prepare for it, I think being authentic and actually going through those experiences in your in your own college experience and college activities is going to be pretty key on how you do in the behavioral section. The third part of it is then ambition and fit, right? Where uh, it's a bit like a choice in a wedding application, right? Where you have to like the company enough, and they have to have the right role that fits you. So rejection is not bad, but getting to the right fit is important. My view today is if I go back to my early days, it didn't matter which company you get the opportunity to work at, but be exceptional at whatever job you do early on. I was privileged to be at Tata Motors. I learned a lot about the culture, about the impact of society. Uh, those are really important, but I think in this economic environment, getting a role is actually going to be more important regardless of wherever you work.
Thank you, Harsh. Much appreciated. And I think, the the advice that you actually gave in terms of, preparing enough is actually critical and will definitely be the one to learn, for any. Um, I have one other question regarding, regarding the advice that you would be giving to the future leaders. Or, what advice, if you will, be giving to the leader of tomorrow? You know, um, if be it technical consulting skill, strategy, or a mix, what should be the primary, yeah, that actually drives them.
So it's a great question. It's a question I kind of keep asking myself, right? So I would say the three things which I think if I could leave this team with would be really good. The first is grit. It's going to be more important than anything else. What does grit mean? Grit means that in the face of disappointment and failures, perceived failures, you are able to get up and continue the journey, to continue to work towards uh, the outcomes that you have. Failures are really important. They are defining in sometimes in our society, in our culture. failure is judged not only by family but also the extended family. There's a lot of advantages of our close knit way of working in the Indian culture, but failure is not something that is accepted. I would say have the grit. That's going to be much more defining, and that's going to make you much more successful later on in life than anything else. The second I would say is have a bold ambition. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. It is more important to have a bold ambition that only you can kind of create and define. And the past is not a definition of what your ambition should be. It should be as bold as you would like, and that will create the pull that you will have on a day-to-day basis in the actions that you take to get you there. And you will get to as bold of a ambition as you define. So read a lot, think about your ambition, uh, fearlessly nurture it, and make sure it is not something that after a month it is not very exciting. Keep at it and emerge over 3 to 5 years, but keep at it and then continue to pursue it ruthlessly. The third thing I would say is learning, right? We are living in an environment where things are constantly changing, and ability to learn both by uh, reading, but also by talking to other people. And I'm sure this forum is a part of that, is to learn from others, but be critical enough to understand that there are others' perspective. They may or may not apply to you. Uh, so think about learning about technical functions, where the market is going, uh, not just from news, but also by talking to your actual friends and colleagues who are working at these places.
So, thank you so much, Harsh. I much appreciate. I see that there are a couple of questions from Hassan on the chat, so I will present those to you. For young professionals, how will you identify networking opportunities and nurture it? And any tips for effective networking to create lasting career connections? Can you talk about them, Harsh, if you don't mind?
So I'll tell you a story, right? So I was working at Tata Motors and I was wanting to do something different in the space of supply chain. I'd gotten smitten by supply chain optimization. I'd read the book from Goldratt on how supply chains of the future, this was late 98, early 99, are going to be different, and optimization as a technique is going to go eliminate waste. I was having uh, tea with a old classmate of mine who had just finished his MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj. Um, and I was sharing with him my excitement. There was someone from Siemens who was actually two tables over. He overheard our conversation. And that leader then invited me to come to the office to have a discussion about supply chain. I didn't realize it was an interview at that time. So some of the networking can be very planned, some of the networking would be accidental. The story of me getting this opportunity in a place where I would have least expected just tells me that you can plan for a lot of networking, but it's a combination of uh, network which you will create and networks that will happen to you. My view is always think about what can you do for others. As you think about networking, it's not just about what you can take from others. And in the programs and projects that you work on, Your work is going to go define the strength of the network. So some of the leaders you work with, they will, as they do things and they do different activities, by staying in contact with them, you would naturally be exposed to the opportunities they're working on and be able to contribute to those opportunities.
Thank you so much, Harsh, for your thoughtful and inspiring answers. I mean, your time this morning, has been much appreciated. Any other things that you want to share before we conclude?
First, thank you very much. I conclude with the thought I had started that this is an amazing time. I wish I were in your shoes, and I'm really excited about all the impact you'll have on others' professional careers, on companies, and overall across the globe as you kind of define your ambition. Your grit, the strength of your ambition, and your learning are going to help you succeed no matter what the environment is. The last thing I would say, it's a really important one from my perspective, is embrace failure. Don't let the cultural implications kind of go define. We own our own successes, we own our own failures. And failures are as important as the perceived successes we might have. With that, thank you so much. Wish you good luck and on to a great journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for sharing your time and the insights that you actually shared with us. It has been an enriching session, and we truly appreciate your guidance and willingness to connect to our alumni and the student community this morning. And for everyone who joined us live this morning or this evening in India, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. We from the special interest group would thank you all. And for whoever who want to would be watching this presentation as a recording, if you have any follow-up questions, you can share with us on LinkedIn. Connect with us. Thank you, and have a good rest
Very
of the day.
much. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.